Hey, fifth grade, it's Mr. Jordan, and I wanted to give you a little bit of details on the Battle of Yorktown. And with the Battle of Yorktown, it's important to remember that we had the Battle of Saratoga before that, and because of how impressive that victory was, the French decided to join our cause, and the United States and France were now allies. So they were very important to us in the Battle of Yorktown. But the Battle of Yorktown was the last major battle in the Revolutionary War. So what happened before the battle actually took place was Washington and the French main force, their two armies were in New York. And the biggest force in North America for the British was Clinton's army. And they were all in New York as well. So everybody thought, including the British, they thought that Washington and Clinton and the French, they were all going to have this huge, massive battle in New York, and Clinton and Washington would finally go at it and fight each other, and so that's just what everybody thought. So Washington, he was very clever, and so he decided that he was going to make a camp outside of New York, just so that Clinton thought that he was going to attack New York. So to give the impression that he was going to attack New York, Washington made a camp outside of New York. So where Clinton's army could see, he made a camp there. He also transcribed some letters describing that they would attack New York, and that specifically they would attack Clinton's army in New York. And he allowed these letters to actually get in the hands of the British forces so that they thought they knew where Washington and the French were going. So he tricked them with a letter, and he also tricked them by building a camp in New York. Now everybody, again, they thought this was going to happen, that Clinton's army and Washington's army were going to have a battle in New York, and then it would be the final battle of the Revolutionary War. So Washington set this all up, and then while this was happening, General Cornwallis was in the South, and he was having a lot of success in the southern colonies, such as South Carolina, Virginia, colonies in the South. He was having a lot of success defeating the Continentals, which was the Americans. So he was camped out in this place called Yorktown. It was a port that mainly traded tobacco. But he was camped there, and he built basically this little fort that him and his force stayed in. And Clinton, because of what Washington did, because he built the camp and because he transcribed letters that said, hey, yeah, we're going to attack Clinton, Clinton was like, I need more men. So he requested more men from Cornwallis. And before the actual Battle of Yorktown, Cornwallis actually sent some of his men to New York to help Clinton. So now Cornwallis's force is even smaller. So you have two main generals right now that we're talking about. It's Clinton and Cornwallis, and they both have large forces of the British Army. And so now Cornwallis has less men because he sent some of his men to help Clinton out, because they all thought that Clinton and Washington were going to have a battle in New York. And Washington and the French forces decided to go south. And as they went south, they met Cornwallis at Yorktown. This became a siege, which means like both forces were entrenched and they were just firing at each other. And the Americans and the French, what that means is they were going to continue fighting until the British got out of where they were entrenched in, which was Yorktown. Now, this was a huge surprise to the British because they thought that Washington was going to attack New York. Well, that didn't happen. He went south with the French forces, and they surrounded Cornwallis at Yorktown. It took days to eventually have Cornwallis's surrender. But the biggest reason why we had the surrender of Cornwallis is because of our French allies, who they also blocked the port with their navy. So their navy blocked the port, so Cornwallis couldn't escape by the sea. The French and the American infantry, so their armies, they were sieging Yorktown, so they were in front, and Cornwallis couldn't retreat from the sea because of the French, and he couldn't retreat by land because of, again, the Continentals and the French were in the front, so they couldn't retreat that way, so he had no choice but to surrender. And what made this such a big deal is because this was the last major battle of the Revolutionary War. And what ended up bringing on this treaty for the Americans was that the British decided, you know what, they're not going to give up and they're not going to keep fighting. And we lost a devastating loss. Cornwallis, all of his force is now captured, and so now the major general they had left was Clinton. They could have still kept fighting, but they decided not to because they realized that the Americans weren't going to stop until they got independence, and that's what led to the Treaty of Paris. So the Battle of Yorktown started the process of the British forces surrendering and completely giving over the 13 colonies to America. So this brought on the Treaty of Paris. So interesting stuff. Again, do your own research. History.com is amazing. They have a lot of good stuff, specifically on the Revolution and the specific battles that we fought in. So Washington and the French army had Cornwallis blocked by land, and the French navy had them blocked by sea. So Cornwallis had no option but to surrender, and Washington fooled Clinton into thinking that he was going to attack New York by making a camp outside of New York, which Clinton's army could see. So they were like, okay, that's where they're camped at. That's where they're planning on. So they're going to plan on attacking soon. And then he also transcribed letters that said, yeah, we're going to attack New York. And he purposely let them get into the hands of the British army, so officials of the British army. So lots of good wit by George Washington and the French allies, and ultimately it worked. It worked. Tricking the British forces worked. So, all right, again, if you have any other questions about this, history.com is amazing. It is a very interesting part of our history. We should have never won the Revolutionary War, but we did. So I'm very thankful for that because we have our own nation now. So I hope you guys are doing well. Stay safe out there, and I hope you're not too bored. Hopefully things like this help you not to be more bored. Hopefully this is exciting for you. I don't know, some of you don't like history, but just letting you guys know we do miss you, and we just hope you're doing well.